This is the Meta Quest 3, the successor to the incredibly popular Oculus Quest 2 that came out almost 3 years prior to the date of this headset's launch. The Quest 2 started at $399 and was lowered to $299 earlier this year, whereas the Quest 3 is coming in at a comparably high $500 for the 128GB variant. This is the elephant in the room for this headset. I simply can't tell you anything about the Quest 3 without reminding you that it has a nearly 70% price premium over the Quest 2 brand new right now, and a 350% premium over a used Quest 2. As good as the Quest 3 is, and trust me, we'll get to that, I don't think that the Quest 3 is 350% better than the Quest 2. Buying a brand new Quest 2 right now is not the best buy. But if you want a good first VR headset, a second-hand Quest 2 is a no-brainer right now. Last, I purchased this Quest 3 on launch data review and potentially use as my daily headset. I have no business relationship with Meta, and I'm doing this review simply because I want to. Also, since I've only been using the headset for a couple weeks, this is more of an impressions video than a full review, but it should still give you a good idea of where the headset is at and how good it is to use on a daily basis. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's embark on this quest. I've worked in the tech industry for half a decade. Spec sheets matter very little for a device that you strap on your face compared to the actual user experience, but they're still important to know and a good point of comparison, so here they are. The Quest 3 is of course much newer than its competitors, having come out as of writing about 2 weeks ago. It features a Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 system on a chip to power its tracking and in-headset games, 8GB of RAM, a 120Hz display with a staggeringly high resolution of 2064 by 2208, which means each eye of the Quest 3 has almost as many pixels as the entire Valve Index. It comes with 128GB or 512GB of storage, depending on how much you want to spend, has a 110-degree horizontal field of view, offers up to 3 hours of battery life out of the box, and weighs 515 grams while being significantly shorter than the Quest 2, with the center of gravity also being much closer to your face. This is the thing that immediately stood out to me, the comfort and wearability of this headset. Now, for context, I'm a prime candidate to tell you about headset comfort because I have quite literally an unusually large head because my forehead is built like an eye tetramino. Because of the fact that the Quest 3 is shorter than the Quest 2 and has different weight distribution, it hugs your face far better than almost any other headset I've used. It makes the Valve Index feel like a wet brick taped to your face with sandpaper glued to the front on it by comparison. Even with the factory strap, the Quest 3 did a more than adequate job of handling a variety of strange and unusual angles of play and movement in active games like Beat Saber, as well as those times you find yourself upside down with your head between your legs in VR chat. In my time using the headset, I also found it to be much more breathable than any other headsets I've used. For example, the Pimax 5K Super and the Valve Index both tended to really quickly get hot on my face, and the Vive Pro Eye would almost always get very moist while playing from sweat, requiring me to clean off the lenses after every single play session, which maybe isn't a bad thing. The Quest 3, on the other hand, had none of these problems, and to boot, I'm someone that gets headaches with a VR device strapped to my face for too long. The Quest 3 is the first device I've used that I can confidently say is comfortable to wear for an extended period of time and doesn't give me headaches. It doesn't feel like it's clamped to my head like the Index while remaining stable. And while it's on your face, the first thing you'll notice when you put on the Quest 3 is how much better the displays, lenses, and especially the pass-through are. Alright, so I'm actually recording the POV right now. During the day, the pass-through of the Quest 3 is stellar. The image quality is clear, relatively low noise, and a massive step up from the Quest 2. The cameras are in full color and have a much better dynamic range to the point that you can actually be in a dark room and use your phone while having the headset on. I did this exact thing while testing out the headset, making some of my tweets about it while wearing a Quest 3. I didn't really get any time in mixed reality while testing, and this is something I'd like to do, but the videos I've seen on Twitter and YouTube look very promising. The better pass-through is good, but not industry-leading. But what is industry-leading is the quality of the displays and lenses. See, the Quest 3 is one of the first actual consumer-focused headsets to use pancake lenses. These lenses, unlike Fresnel lenses, are not a single piece of glass or plastic, but several layers squished together, like a pancake. In a way, Fresnel lenses avoid being like camera lenses due to the size constraints, and pancake lenses try to be like a camera lens in spite of it. The reason we haven't seen a pancake lens until now is because of the fact that they're significantly more difficult to develop and more expensive to manufacture, and we didn't really start seeing any production Pro headsets with them until 2021. In spite of that, Meta is not just selling the Quest 3 with pancake lenses, but you can even get prescription lenses for it from Zenni Optical, which means if you need glasses but don't want to wear them or wear contacts in your VR headset, this is a really compelling option for just $50. With all that in mind though, these new pancake lenses allow for the Quest 3 to be smaller, lighter, and narrower while providing much better optical clarity. One of the things that bothered me the most about my Valve Index was the various halos and bright spot effects you'd get anytime you were just in an area with high contrast, whereas the Quest 3 is very consistent in how it delivers its images with basically no artifacting or distortion. And although it's not as high res as a Vario Aero, I think that for the majority of people, the Quest 3 is at a point where its optical image quality is in a new class that really divides the previous generation and the current generation of headsets. Oh, and the displays both get brighter and dimmer than the outgoing Quest 2, so on top of great clarity, you can adjust your brightness as needed to suit your eyes better than you would have been able to before. Okay, we've covered the displays, the comfort, the general usability, but there are two other elements to a VR headset that are of key importance that I haven't touched on yet, and one unique to standalone headsets: audio, tracking quality, and processing power. The Quest 3 sound is acceptable. The microphone is a step up from the Quest 2.
Dude, this new UI is honestly quite impressive.
I definitely think that based on what I've heard, the Quest 3 could have done with a better mic, but it's still usable enough for content creation and general usage. The above-ear audio solution is improved as well, being both significantly louder and more clear than the Quest 2. But since the speakers sort of fire more outwards than downwards, bass response is lackluster at best and downright crunchy at worst. I'd highly recommend buying a pair of in-ear monitors or over-ear headphones if you're going to be using a Quest 3. The headset itself tracks almost perfectly. I have virtually no complaints with it, and even in a dark room, it's able to maintain its tracking, which was a shortfall with the Quest 2 in certain situations. The Quest 3's controllers, though, track with incredibly high accuracy, but still utilize basic internal tracking and rely heavily on the Quest 3 itself to place themselves in 3D space. As a result, the Quest 3 is actually a usable and reliable headset for daily use in things like Beat Saber, and its only real shortcoming is specifically with apps like VR Chat when you're placing your hands under a blanket or behind your back. This is an edge case that isn't really important to the overall experience or even to most users, but having self-track controllers like the Quest Pro controllers would have been a big plus, especially as these Quest 3 controllers are basically the same design, just without cameras. And while we're at it, let's also mention that the upgraded Quest 3 controllers are a massive step up in virtually every way from the Quest 2, aside from tracking. They're much more compact, more comfortable, easier to grip, and more reliable than the outgoing safety ring-bearing monstrosities. To be clear, the Quest 3 controllers track a lot better than the Quest 2, especially when they're in front of you, but they have the same shortcoming as the Quest 2's controllers, where, if they're behind your back, you're not doing anything. And then improved tracking does come from more than just better software. As I mentioned at the start of this video, the Meta Quest 3 is powered by a Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 SoC, which has effectively 2.5 times the raw computing power in GPU compute when compared to the chip found in the Quest 2. And believe me when I say it shows. While testing, I had no loss in tracking fidelity in VR Chat in lobbies that were fully loaded with 40 people and rarely dipped below 30 frames per second. And I was consistently able to get close to 90 frames per second in smaller worlds and properly optimized Quest worlds with small groups of friends. The really important thing is though, these frame rates were stable. The Quest 2 had a nasty habit of having heavy FPS dips and lag spikes, probably due to overheating. And the Quest 3 seems to not have these nearly as frequently, if at all. This transfers to PC VR as well, where Airlink doesn't stutter or have tracking jitter at all, provided you have the right router for the job. And that's basically it. The Quest 3 is an incredibly good step up from the Quest 2, and I'd even say in most ways it's a step up from the Index. This is, at the moment, the king of PC VR and standalone headsets for the vast majority of people. Well, at least in terms of price to performance and to overall feature set. It's not the best at any one thing, but it does everything well, and in the current market, that's a really solid feat. My main issue though is simply its price. The Quest 2 is just a better buy for the majority of people right now. You can scoop them up on eBay for less than $150, and if you're just looking for your first VR headset, that's a no-brainer when compared with the $500 price tag of the Quest 3. You don't need to spend that much for a good experience. If you really want to, you can, but for most people, I think you should take the stepping stone with the Quest 2 first. The Quest 3 may be a better VR headset, but it's not 350% better. Thanks for watching.